All right. Welcome, everybody, to our Perspectives Live for November. We are excited for this event today and for our special guests. Using technology as a catalyst for growth. Really excited to have Jack Yang and Simon Rose here with us today and to talk about technology and how it can help financial institutions improve and grow. So Jack, Simon, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Perspectives Live call, and we're excited to have you here. What I wanted to do is take a minute and introduce Jack and Simon. So Jack is Chief Technology Officer at American National Bank of Texas. He's also a senior member of their Executive Vice President group. He's responsible for all of the aspects of their technology organization, infrastructure, business applications, product engineering, architecture. Been with the bank for 6 years. Prior to that, spent 20 plus years in the software industry and working at the Asia Pacific engineering office for VRBO and Expedia. So excited to have you here, Jack, and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Simon Rose, Consulting Director for SRM Europe, 25 plus years of financial experience, financial services expertise, spanning working for a large UK national retail bank as well as consulting time. He has leadership roles in his banking career, including being part of a team that ran the entire branch network and distribution channel support for that large bank. Moved into consulting in 2011, worked with many financial services organizations, delivering many innovative technologies, organizational redesigns, and helping rescue and recover of a new UK charter banks or challenger banks payment capabilities. So Simon has been with SRM since 2018 and leads our European arm, but also leads SRM's US growth strategies, and hence working with American National Bank of Texas on some of their technology initiatives. Wanted to bring him into the conversation as well. So Simon, thank you for joining.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Glad to be here.
Great. Just a couple housekeeping items. Again, this is an open call. There is a chat function. If you guys have questions as we go through this conversation, again, these are, for those of you not familiar, this is kind of like informal conversations. Not, we're not going to run through PowerPoint slides or demos or things like that, but really just from our guests understand, where technology sits and how it can be a catalyst for growth in this area. So Jack, if you could just kind of start us off, tell us a little bit about American National Bank of Texas.
Sure. American National Bank of Texas, we're one of the largest independently owned community banks in the Texas area, and we actually just celebrated 150 years this year. We had a big party last week. It was great fun. It's an amazing kind of legacy to have 150 years in a community. We do offer traditional banking services, both to individuals as well as to small businesses, where our focus is. But we also have a wealth management group that actually they're moving into their new digs in Richardson, Texas. But they, serve the corporate trusts, individual estate planning, things like that. We have about 70,000 customers and a $5.5 billion asset size. So a good sized bank, not huge, not small, right? Somewhere in the middle. And we have about 30 locations throughout the DFW area, covering a lot of the different counties in that area.
Nice. Thanks for that introduction. So you've been at the bank for about six plus years, software industry for over 20, most of that outside of banking. So how did that what challenges or opportunities did you see as you came into the bank and that led you to kind of looking at a technology strategy for the bank and improving that?
Yeah, I mean, it is a different field. A lot of people ask me about that. I have my own personal stories behind the bank and why it resonates with me, and I can talk more about that if you want to. But I think for me, the key focus when I first met our CEO, and he was talking to me as I was joining the bank, at the time he said, "Hey, we're nearly 145 years old at this point, and I really want us to last another 145 years, and at this case, another 150 years, right?" Which is, it's an intimidating order, marching order to be given. It's a huge legacy, and you want to protect that. And at the same time, I think the financial industry often is accused of being slightly behind the curve, right? Because it's slower to adopt new technologies. There's a lot of challenges there in terms of making sure it's higher stakes, right? In my previous jobs, if you mess something up, it wasn't really the end of the world. But here, you're charged with people's livelihoods, their college funds, their retirements. So you have to be very careful with what you do. And also, with our size of our bank, we're not like one of the big boys where we have the kind of staffs of developers and engineers that I had at my previous job, right? I don't have that kind of resource here. So we have to be very picky and choosy on what technologies we provide our customers, what technology we arm our employees with in order to better serve our customers and have an impact, right? And I think part of it, when I first joined the bank, we had a lot of challenges in terms of we were very good at being reactive. We were the guys that fixed laptops, fixed the servers, and made sure the website
Sure.
stayed up, right? And that was great for running the bank, but we needed to move ourselves into a position where we could change the bank, right? And so I think that those are all the remits in front of us. You have that, juggling the pace of innovation and making sure that you're moving forward without making too many mistakes because you have very limited resources to make bets. So building, kind of that infrastructure, making sure it's sound, it's safe, it's scalable, and then prepares us to be able to embrace new technologies as they come by.
I love that phrase that, it was great for running the bank, but we needed to change the bank.
Right.
I mean, so understanding that, and change is more than just technology. There's people, there's processes, there's change management, and the likes. And how did you kind of start that process and lay the foundation? I mean, your CEO was like, "Hey, we need to change." So getting executive buy-in at the beginning was great. How did you kind of lay that foundation for your team and kind of the organization as a whole?
I'll confess, it actually the tracks were laid fairly easily for me. Our board, the rest of the executive team have been extremely, extremely receptive towards change. They were looking to me to help, bring a fresh perspective, not just a financial perspective. Obviously, I didn't grow up in a financial industry, and so kind of bringing a new lens to how to do things. And everyone was super enthusiastic and supportive, not just from a resource and budgetary, but really just kind of asking the right questions, participating, and not just sitting there going, "Oh, this is a technology problem, right? And you'll solve it, no problem." Everyone really
Yeah.
participated, which is actually really cool to be in. I was afraid I'd be in an uphill battle. One of the things I always tell people is like, in this day and age, no matter what industry you're in, you're a technology company, right? And if you don't think of yourself as a technology company first, you're probably a little bit behind. And all of us are technology companies. We just have a different niche. Our niche happens to be finances and money, right? And so how do you apply that to a more traditional way of thinking and approaching things, the things and respecting that, all the things that got you here for the last 150 years, what do we need to actually add on to that secret sauce to make it propel into the next 150 years?
Yeah, that's great. So you brought in SRM as part of this process, and Simon would love to kind of hear from you of like not only the American National Bank of Texas, but how did this process or this thought idea come to bear, and how did you kind of work with Jack to kind of help outline and lay that foundation?
Well, actually, it's a little bit of history, I think, in terms of SRM, and hopefully people won't mind me saying so. But certainly in the US, for much of SRM's history, it's very much been focused on the vendor side, looking at contract negotiations and how we can leverage better deals and better outcomes for our clients. But it was actually very interesting, the great pandemic, or the great scare, whatever you want to call it, COVID-19, actually threw up an interesting strategic opportunity for the business, because The guys over here in the European team are effectively what you would call traditional management consultants. So we do a lot of sort of strategic and operational advisory work over here. And it was an opportunity to really look at, can we export, now that people are moving into a remote kind of way of working, can we export those capabilities into our client base in the US? Because we've got really good, strong client base in the US. And American National Bank of Texas had always been a very friendly client to us. I think, before we started doing the strategic work, we'd done around 12, 13 years maybe of work around the vendor space with the bank to support them. So we were talking to the senior team about opportunities where we might be able to add additional value and bringing different solutions to the table. And what started the process off was one of the propositions that we've got, which we call, typically it's organization on a page, because we do it in different industries, but we pitched it as a bank on a page. And that really helps to look at how the bank is aligned strategically. So what are the key pillars? Where the dysfunctions are, where the opportunities, the challenge are, to really help improve operations and effectiveness from the customer angle. But we also come at it from the internal angle as well. So how they're organizing their hierarchies and their teams to be able to facilitate the customer interaction. And that's what started our initial relationship with the advisory work with the bank. And as we started getting into the detail around that initial sort of discovery piece, Jack and I sort of we talked quite a bit, and an opportunity came to the fore to look at the technology strategy. If you don't mind me saying so, Jack, I think the technology strategy was what you'd inherited was quite immature in terms of what it needed to be, and Jack's vision for the bank, Steve. So we talked about how we could improve that and what we needed to do. We had some methodologies in place on how we could help to bring the technology strategy to a more mature position for Jack, and he liked the idea that we pitched, and we expanded our initial remit to start working in that space.
If you don't mind me just chiming in to that, I swear Simon didn't pay me to say any of this. Okay. I'm just, I really do think super highly of all the work that we've done with SRM over the years, but I'm particularly proud of this one because, coming in from a different industry, I didn't really have a codified thought on how to bring this together and merge it with an industry I had no background in, right? No ideas on. And they brought kind of that external expertise of all the financial institutions that you guys have worked with, help us kind of map through, okay, well, here are all the different capabilities that are out there. What do you want to be known for? What do you want to be great at, right? And then also make sure that we looked towards where the bank wants to go. Because it's usually hard as a support system to draw a line between how you impact the bottom line of the company when you're kind of buried 2 levels deep in supporting the company, right? And so helping us draw that line of alignment, that the telescope, I think metaphor that you guys use a lot is very helpful. It's just kind of like being able to clarify that and bring that into focus. And for me, I didn't want just some document that we produced and then put on a shelf and we're proud to have done and then shine it off. It became like a living document. I'll admit we trimmed a lot of what was produced in order to make it a little more manageable for me to update and make it part of the way that I manage technology in the bank, right? Every single year, I relook at the entire thing. I look and evaluate where we are in our capabilities that Simon helped us establish and, set our goals on where we want to go. And I change them and I tailor them and I use that and I align that up to what our goals are for the bank on one side, but on the other side, drive alignment all the way down to the individual contributors because they take those departmental goals and using our OKR process drives it all the way down to the individual. So now we have a line of sight from the individual going all the way to the goals and the visions of a 5-year plan of the bank, and it's all aligned. And it adjusts on a regular cadence in order to deal with incoming things.
Yeah, you mentioned before, Steve, the couple of words there, run and change. So I think we coined that in terms of working with Jack. So we refer to it as run the bank and change the bank. So in the context of run, it's what do you need to do just to keep the lights on? And then what do you need to do activities wise to support the bank on its change journey and how it needs to adapt? And what Jack referred to earlier in the conversation is his desire to actually move the bank on and, make it more of a technology focused company. But traditionally, technology is seen as a cost. There's a
Yeah.
cost to any sort of business. But actually when you start looking at it, there's a huge cultural change opportunity here because technology is the enabler. So everything that the business wants to do to support its customers and what the customer wants the business to do to support them is predicated on all of the technology implications or new
Mhm.
innovations that are coming to the fore. So it's there as an enabler. And what we were able to do and the process and methodologies that we took, not only Jack and his team on, but the rest of the bank, was we involved the bank in a whole process of helping to change their view, their understanding of what actually technology can do and how it can
Yeah.
support what they do in their day-to-day lives.
Yeah. So Jack, as you look at this living document, right, and you have the bank goals and the strategy, right, led by the executive team and where we're going and how technology is that enabler, how has that changed like people's view of the technology group and how you as a team are aligning the people that are coding and writing things and aligning that to, hey, here's our 5-year plan, here's our 10-year plan for the bank. And because you're doing this, we're achieving that. I mean, how has that transformed you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I admit the first, say, 3 or 4 years of executing on our strategy and vision after working with Simon really was spent on building that foundation, right? And so, we put into place a data warehouse on Snowflake, built an integration with MuleSoft to help us with implementation of third-party, applications and easily kind of scale and move and change as a result, and get us in a position where we're no longer just so busy with just responding to things that were happening, running the bank, if you will, that we actually have bought ourselves to the point where we're now able to start bringing innovations into the bank, right? And I think that's a pivotal change. It's like moving to a front-footed, proactive stance rather than a reactive stance. It's great to be very good at being reactive, but it doesn't
Sure.
get you any further, right? You're not competing with the other banks. You're not competing with the big boys, right? And so I think for us to be at that point where we're no longer like when I first got here, we were standing at the data warehouse and people really didn't understand the value of what we were doing. Well, now, and I kind of hate saying it, we've had this migration recently, and some of the things of the data warehouse have broken, and everyone's up in arms now, right? And to me, that's good news in some degree. It's bad news that we
You
caused
gave
this
them the
disruption.
access and then you took it away.
Right.
Where is it? Yeah.
But before they didn't understand the value of data and what we were doing with it, and now it's become part of their lives that they're like, oh my gosh, it's broken, right? And
Yeah.
where is it? And so that tells me that there's that embrace of technology that's happening, and again, what Simon was saying, where we worked with the entire bank in order to develop the technology strategy. It's not my technology strategy, it's the entire bank's technology strategy. So there's buy-in everywhere. Everyone believes in where we're going because we set the document with everyone. Right. And so now we're able to do things like, very proud of, what we did last year, which we stood up a copy of OpenAI's ChatGPT internally. We worked with our regulators because they gave us
Wow.
sound warnings on how to apply and not apply
Mhm.
generative AI in our ecosystem. And they were like, great, I love what you're doing. You're building a sandbox so it's not any data is not leaving. And my stance here is to say, hey, I need to prepare my colleagues to embrace this new technology as it's coming online, and I need to do it in a safe and effective manner. I couldn't have done that 5 years ago because I was so buried in debt, right? And being able to clarify, just having that document of our IT vision strategy articulated, pointed everyone in the same direction. They understand we want to be a fast follower on new technologies. Well, you know what? In this case, with generative AI, we want to be the fastest follower. So what does that mean? We have to be prepared. We have to be introduced to technology. We have to know what the governance is around all these things and getting prepared for that. Again, we wouldn't have been able to do that because we were behind the eight ball this entire time. But now we're on the front foot, able to introduce new technologies like this.
So, I mean, what were those early wins that got people? Was it the data warehouse? Was it, what were those early things that got that credibility that people are like, oh, hey, we're moving. Yeah, this is where we're going.
Well, so, it sounds a little remedial. I think the biggest win was actually being seen as a department as a technology business partner, not just the guys who fix laptops, right? We're now the people that you go to when you want to acquire new technology, when you want to solve a new problem. When I first arrived at the bank, a lot of the applications and technologies weren't necessarily managed by IT, right? And so they were scattered everywhere. Part of it was because there was an inherent distrust. It's like we were kind of disorganized. It was hard for us to get things done. And they're like, well, you guys are really busy, so we'll pick our own technology and we'll let you know what you needed.
We'll let you know. Yeah.
Right, we'll let you know. It's different now. I feel like we have a true partnership with the business. They look to us for expertise. We help horizon scan and look for new technologies for them, whereas that's not something we did before, right? And so to me, I'm very proud of that moment because that's a very big change in the way that the bank looks at technology and looks at us as a department in technology. And that enables us, now that we've built that trust, to then go, okay, I think it's important for us to understand, you know, these new emerging technologies, evaluate whether blockchain is something that's going to impact us immediately, or if that's something that we'll keep an eye on. Stablecoin,
Yeah.
wow, that sounds interesting. Oh, wow, now there's legislation. That might be a real thing that we need to look at. This is what we need to start preparing for. Oh, large language models, agentic AI. Like, we weren't looking forward into technology because we didn't have people deployed that way, right? And so I feel like we're in a better position now. And those are the kind of, I mean, I don't know if you were looking for specific technology wins that we were doing, but
No,
I feel like the cultural win is probably the hardest battle to fight.
I mean, agree. I mean, that is so true. It's just you winning hearts and minds is the top priority for getting people to getting them to be in that proactive stance
Yeah.
and understanding, hey, this is how we're going to scan, this is how we're going to move, this is how we're gonna grow. No, that's really 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 great insight. Um, you talked about, or I guess, Simon talked about, technology is a cost a lot of the times, right?
Yeah.
Has this change switched that from the opportunity to say, hey, look, technology is enabling us to grow, or operational efficiency, or how does that kind of translate into kind of performance benchmarks, if you will?
Yeah, so I always joke at board meetings and staff meetings that everyone believes I have a giant dumpster in the back of the building where I throw our hard-earned money and just light a match and set it on fire. So, it's the dumpster fire of money, I always joke. But no, I say that in jest, but I do enjoy a lot of support from our bank and our board. Bringing in things like, Salesforce as our CRM platform, and moving, to more modern, loan origination systems and whatnot. Those are all really key factors that met no resistance. I didn't have people fighting me about money. I just needed to articulate and be able to translate the technology speak into business speak as to why this is going to be of value to us, how it's going to bring operational efficiency to us. Things like tools like AI. People are, you hear in the news all these people, being laid off and big companies doing that. That's not the stance that we have at the bank. At the bank, when I talk to people, they're asking me, well, how are we going to embrace AI? I'm like, the idea here is what we're trying to do is move the average value of tasks that our employees work on up, right?
Mm.
Instead of everyone spending 30 minutes a day triaging their emails and getting through, if we can save them that 30 minutes times, what do we have, 550, nearly 600 employees now, that, how many hours is that? 275 hours per day saved. There are tons of small efficiencies that can be gained, right? And that's not the culture that we have where we're like, okay, let's squeeze everything down and lay a bunch of people off. That's not where we are. We know there's a bunch of work that we can do. My job is to bring more efficiency so we can focus on our one superpower, which is building those relationships in the community.
Yeah,
Right?
if I can add to that, Jack. So part of the work that we did on technology strategy with you exposed a little bit of this, but also one of the projects that we took on post the work with you originally, going back 5 years when we started working with you, you talked about loan origination systems. Some of the chats that we have with some of the colleagues around the sales teams really resonated with me because from a commercial loan perspective, they were producing 50, 60 page case files that went to board for approval to do a commercial loan. Now you've actually brought in or expanded a loan origination system that does that and does all of the automated checking and approvals. That limits the time for people preparing that documentation and also the board for approving it, wading through all of that information. So I think that's been a huge advantage to the sales team in connecting Jack's technology strategy and people adopting it culturally, Steve, to really embracing the opportunity for efficiency.
And again, it's that cultural piece where no longer are people just saying, I think by articulating our technology strategy and bring everyone on board, it's no longer just saying, oh yeah, that's an IT function. They'll get it done somehow, right? It is, I understand it. I understand the value of what we're doing. I'm behind what we're trying to do, and that's a great feeling, where we're bringing everyone
Yeah.
along.
Yeah. You're not dragging people, or you're not, everything's thrown at you and you're trying to juggle it, but you're just like, look, we're going, and let's go attack it.
Yep.
It's a great strategy, great thought. So just for everybody on the call, this is again an open conversation. So if there's questions you as participants would love to ask Jack or Simon, please type those in the chat function in Zoom, and happy to ask those away. But so Jack, you've kind of progressed from, hey, we're a little bit immature, reactive. We now have a good strategy that's aligned to our bank strategy from a business and a technology perspective. What's next? What kind of on the next year horizon? I mean, you talked about some of those technologies, but what does your document and your strategy say for your bank over the next couple of years?
I think, thinking about that question, I hate leaning back to what everyone else is going to say, but truthfully, there really is nothing else that I can say that right now that's different, in that I really feel like there is a lasting impact on what AI can do towards building operational efficiency, making our people more productive. Even the taste of what we've done with our internal model that we've taken a copy of and modified and trained on internal documentation, procedures, and governance. We're already seeing benefits to it, right? Just with people playing, like we haven't actually there. We talk about our we call her Mia, my intelligent assistant. Like she's still, as my chief data officer says, she's still a teenager. She's still learning. She's still got bumps and bruises, but already people are taking emails from customers and turning those into loan proposals, right? And something that would normally take half a day of a producer trying to put it all in the right, documentation and write out the right thing, he was able to do it in 7 minutes, right? We've got internal communications that we can use to assist on talking to customers, on educating customers, being produced in a fraction of the time. And so we're already seeing kind of savings from it. There have been a lot of other technologies in the recent past that were like, oh, this is the new thing, this is the next thing. But truly, they didn't really move the needle on how we did things day to day immediately. And that's kind of where we are with AI. I look forward to a lot of the things that we're going to be able to do with agentic AI, since it's doing things rather than just telling us things, right? And so, we're looking forward to embracing more and more of that, and then understanding how we're going to position ourselves. Like, okay, that's great. we've got Mia, but we know we're never going to outpace what's out there, right? And so then it's how do we change Mia to be an orchestration layer for delegating to the right agents or to the right LLMs, to
Mhm.
go talk to Einstein in Salesforce, or go talk to sales Snowflake's AI engine, and get the insights and delegate the right thing. So trying to get in front of all of that and understand the implications, it's liberating to be in a position where we're thinking that way. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't know if I answered that question properly.
No, that's great. I mean, it's looking at the future is hard. I think the idea of like you understanding how technology can enable the bank to grow and be more efficient and not necessarily just, okay, we're using technology to lay people off, right,
Right.
to save money, but it's the idea of like how can we use the technology to drive better efficiencies and
Right.
better productivity and better engagement, not only with the bank, but with the community, the employees, and everybody else. Is like, hey, this is enabling me to be better at my job, enabling me to do more things, enabling me to help people with their financial lives, right? And again, that's the purpose of a bank or a credit union is to do that, and enabling technology to do that is huge.
Well, I think I've recently been reading some books on from futurists, talking about the next 100 years and things like that, and had the fortune to speak with some of these authors. And I think a lot of them lean towards this idea that we're going to be moving towards a more hyper localized small business era, right? Where, a larger institution, they're headquartered across the country somewhere, and their policies and the way that they're serving their customers is going to somehow apply to Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, and
Mhm.
and the thought there is that we're going to be moving towards a more localized system where it puts a community bank like ours in a really good position because we do know our community, we do tailor our products and services towards the Dallas Fort Worth area and the people that we serve there, and we know those customers really well, and that gives us a huge advantage against someone that's sitting halfway across the country, right? And so
Yeah.
being in that position means we have to be ready with our technology, not just our technology, but our products and services and how we're going to interface with our customers. And so I'm doing my part with technology and making sure our bank is there.
Yeah. Awesome. Got a question that came in for you, Jack. Speaking of customers, how has this benefited them, right? Since you've pivoted your strategy and invested in new tech, if we asked your customers, have you seen a change in the bank, or what would be the biggest benefit you would say?
I do think that, I think it's difficult for community banks. We're all, again, like I said, we don't have a huge development team, and so we're forced to buy from the same vendors. And so being able to stand out is very difficult. I think all of the banks kind of say the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, we're part of our community and our relationships are key. But I guess being prepared for that is a slightly different thing, and being able to invest in the right technologies is somewhat difficult because if you make the wrong bet, you've flushed half your budget down the drain. So let me. Sorry, I kind of lost track of your question. Um, the biggest impact, I think, our customers. We actually changed our online application software for our bank, and I think it went from like a 3-star solution to now, we're near like 4.6, 4.8 or something like that. I
Nice.
mean, like, people certainly appreciate the investments that we have made in technology. I think we can serve our customers better. We have, things like Salesforce now where we're tracking our customer contacts and being able to kind of go, okay, well, here's your past history. So we're able to serve them better. There's a longer institutional memory of all the things that have occurred. Since they're not just stuck in one person's head, they're things that are being shared across the organization. I think that there are, uh, lots of anecdotal evidence that I've heard when I meet with other peers, either at conferences or my boss has gone to conferences and talked to his CEO peers, and they're like, "Oh wow, you guys have a data warehouse, and oh wow, you're doing this, or oh wow, you've already got Salesforce included. Like you guys are way ahead, right?" And I often don't like to crow about myself, but I feel very proud of that statement.
Yeah.
That we're not just ahead for ahead's sake, we're ahead because we're using these tools to be better at serving our customers, right? And so have I gotten direct feedback? I try to go out and we've met with customers. My chief data officer and I have gone out and met with, customers in our community, and I want to listen to the problems. It's like, well, what do you want from your bank, right? Well, we want a business partner. We want someone to help us scale. We're a small business. We're growing. We went from like 50 people, now we're at 200. What software should we be using for accounting? Like
Yeah.
they want advice, right? And so I think the most important thing that we do is try to go out there and speak with the customer, not just our frontline people, but our technology people, that usually people
Yeah.
that you kind of keep in the back because we're not very sociable people, right? But going to learn about their problems so that we can implement solutions that will directly affect them and impact them in a better way.
Yeah. Well said, Jack. Well said. That's great. So in your bio that you sent us, you say you love spending time in the kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
So favorite dish that you like making?
Okay. I'm a huge cooking nerd, and really don't have a favorite dish that I like to cook. I will tell you that my mission in life is to cook as many cuisines from appetizer to dessert as possible because I like to learn about how cooking is done, the techniques, the inspirations behind classical meals. And so then once I understand it, then I can, okay, dissect it and learn and, cater it to my tastes and
Yeah.
whatnot. So I'm just a tinkerer at heart, and so I think that goes
Awesome.
through my technology. So
I was just going to say that's probably I want to understand all the technology, bring it on, what makes it work, and create a meal, if you will, for the bank. Another question just came in for both of you. So AI is clearly the big focus for most organizations right now. But beyond this, what shifts in technology do you think could catch leaders and organizations off guard if they're not paying attention?
ooh. um I'm just gonna speak for myself here. I feel like um there was a big, I know it's polarizing, big thing on cryptocurrency and blockchain, several years back, and it's still being talked about, whatnot. But there wasn't it didn't feel like there was a direct application in the near term, right? And I think this introduction of the Genius Act and stablecoin, uh,
Mm.
not so much. I don't think so much you know, it being a digital currency, it's really what it represents, which is actually speeding up the way that you can transact dollars around the world, right? And it's just, to me, it's just another, and I'll confess, I'm not as well read as probably some of the people that are watching this right now, but it seems like an just another opportunity to transact faster, right? And it's something that our consumers are asking for and dwelling on. And to paint it with the same brush as, say, Bitcoin and Ethereum and all those other things, it probably, if you that would be an underestimation of the value of that technology if you look at it only from that lens. I think that, it was interesting. I sat through a Federal Reserve class just recently, and it was interesting hearing their take on it, right? Which is, speeding up that. I think it can be an interesting um, tussle between what they've built with FedNow and what they have, in terms of the Genius Act and what it can do. Can it compete? I think there's a place where they might be complementary, right? But only time will tell, depending on how the legislation
Mm-hmm.
is done. But I think that will be an interesting thing to consider as it goes forward.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Simon, thoughts?
Yeah, I'll not pick up on the technology as such, but more the impacts around it. So I'll come at it from a couple of angles here. I think we've got to be careful from a regulatory standpoint because traditionally regulators, by their very nature, are often people with law as a background. They don't really necessarily see the impact on the front line for the customer. and it's always very reactive, and sometimes it can be overdone. So therefore, it limits or has the potential to limit innovation and being able to act in an agile manner and react to shifts quickly in the market. The second point is the bad actors. They often seem to be ahead of the curve before the people who are genuinely trying to provide a great service to customers. They know the insides and the outsides of things before we do. So it's how do we actually keep up to protect customers' money and their livelihoods and so on fast enough. And to some extent, I think the regulation can often get in the way of doing that because it doesn't allow the innovation fast enough. And I can say that, with certainly this side of the pond, Steve, we seem to
Yeah.
be very protectionist, very reactive, and trying to shut down a lot of these things through regulation. And that's unintentional, I think, unintended consequences sometimes without thinking these things
Mhm.
through. So that's how I would approach it.
I know oftentimes people don't look fondly on regulations and regulatory agencies. I've at the bank we have a slightly different view of it. We really embrace our regulators, and I speak with them. I try to speak with them as often as I can, especially when I'm thinking about trying to implement new things or do new things. They provide very good advice and partnership, and getting ideas in front of them. You also get a chance to hear about what they're thinking about and what's coming down the line earlier, rather than waiting for a news press release, right? And so,
Yeah.
embracing that has been a uh, a uh, a key thing for me in order to be successful at the bank, because you certainly don't want to have a combative relationship with them. They're there to help. They're there to protect our customers, and at the same time, I agree with Simon. They can they can slow things down if you're not careful. But I think they're also willing to talk, right? And so that kind of
Yeah.
helps too.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the real positive about the regulators is that all they're interested in is protection of the customer. So every step of the way, whether it's technology, whether it's business processes, whether it's products, if you can prove that the customer is at the center of everything you're trying to do, then you'll get a much fairer ride from the regulators.
Yeah. Uh, Final thoughts, Jack. I mean, if you're another chief technology officer comes up to you and says, "How do I get started?" Right? I mean, what would you? I mean, is it the change management? Is it the recommendations? Is it I want to get where you are at? How would you recommend it that they look at getting started?
There's a lot of patience involved, being able to be the translator between technology and the business. I think that's a big part of it, and having a partner like SRM help me articulate those things is super important. But you do have to have a good point of view to start with, right? You have to have the raw material in which Simon and team can help clarify and sort it into a digestible form that you can use later. So I think I would advise other financial institution technology practitioners to think about how you would go about changing the bank and having a good, and how do you get away? I mean, because I've met quite a few of my colleagues, and we are all in the same place, and many of the smaller institutions ever more so, which is we're the great reactors and we're always behind the eight ball. So you're never in front of anything. And you see a lot of the bank consolidations today, and it's easy for that to happen when you're kind of behind, and you're not, it's easy to kind of give up on the fight because you're not at the forefront. You're constantly fighting fires, right? So how do you get yourself in front of everything, and how do you make your institution stand out when we all have to buy from the same vendors, right? And when we have limited resources, right? And again, that challenge of being relegated to run the bank all the time. Well, you know what? If we're all technology companies, that's the lever in which to change the bank. So if you're going to
Mhm.
be behind the eight ball and just react, you're going to fall behind very quickly, right? And so I would urge everyone to think about, okay, well, what is it going to take? Is it going to be a cultural move, right? Or is it laying foundations of technology in order for you to innovate later? Or, is it, convincing your board that, hey, technology isn't just a dumpster fire full of money that I'm lighting up every single month, right? But bridging that gap is going to be important, and that's, I would say, 90% of my job.
Yeah, you're trying to bring all the ingredients together to cook something up good, Jack.
There you go. There you go.
Love it. Gentlemen, thank you for the time. I appreciate it. This was a great conversation. Appreciate you taking the time, and thank you all for joining us on this Perspectives Live. And hope you have a great day, and good luck on your technology initiatives.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
All right.
Jack. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah.